rated M for mature.
Sure are a lot of DS RPGs this year's Tokyo Game Show. Everywhere you turn, it's a Japanese DS RPG, huh?
Yeah, Tokyo Game Show is very DS crazy. And unfortunately, because I don't read Japanese, I actually ended up playing the wrong game. I was supposed to play Nights in the Nightmare. I looked. I didn't look hard enough apparently because I didn't find it. So I went into some random kiosk in the Sega booth and I sat down and I'm like, alright, I'm just going to play this game because it looks kind of like it. Play this game where you have this dude that looks kind of like Raiden with a big, peasant hat, running around punching rats in a dungeon.
That's sheer in the Wonder, dude.
Yeah, see, I realized this fact. When I sit there, I'm looking at the touchscreen like, wait a minute, there's a 2 in the logo. Fuck.
仕事へ行きたくない学校なんかつまんないみんなで一緒にテレビゲーム遊びたいどこでも行っても同じだみんなで歌を歌うんだみんなで一緒にテレビゲーム遊んだらどうだら One up show を見ましょう One up show で遊ぼう One up show Wow すごい One up show やったよこれはワンアップショーです
Sega had 6 different DS RPGs right next to each other in these little kiosks, so,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of RPGs, but some of them were really good. I mean, Fitch, you played most of these RPGs, right?
Yeah, I played Seventh Dragon, which I know you played, and we were both disappointed. And unfortunately, Jeremy Parrish isn't here, and he's still in Japan. I think he sort of gave the game a free pass. It's by Reiko Kodama, who did Phantasy Star, yeah, and the guy behind Etrian Odyssey. The first Etrian Odyssey, the second Etrian Odyssey was done internally at Atlas. But this is basically, you know, his above-ground take on Etrian Odyssey, and I just don't feel like that there's that, you know, stylus map-making hook, you know, with this game that there is with Etrian Odyssey. It just feels like a generic Super Famicom RPG that we never got, and you really need something more in this day and age. You really need some sort of hook, you know, to go back and play those games. You know, unless it's like on the levels of a Dragon Quest.
I mean, that's kind of how I felt about Shining Force Feather, another one of Sega's games there. You know, it's alright, it's, you know, they're bringing back the strategy elements, but again, is it enough to make you go out and get it?
Yeah.
When there's all these, you know, bigger name RPGs coming out like Dragon Quest IX, which wasn't here at the show except in video, but you know that's coming.
Yeah, they were showing a lot of the B-level stuff.
Sega's A-level DS RPG is Phantasy Star Zero, which is their online version of Phantasy Star Online. It looks really good for DS. It comes out.
Now,
this
did you
year.
get a chance to play that?
Briefly, I mean, you know, it's the graphics aren't as good as you'd expect, but the gameplay's good, and it uses the touch panel really well. You can draw little, you know, pictures wherever you want. I think it looks promising for Sega. Like most of the things they changed in PSU, they've completely abandoned in both PS0 for DS and the Phantasy Star Portable for PSP. They're a lot more like PSU. Now that's the big deal at TGS, Monster Hunter. I mean, that's like Monster Hunter is just like PSO. It's Capcom's game, and they're showing the first Wii version, Monster Hunter Tri. The line was out of control. It was like a 5-hour wait to play it. So is Monster Hunter Tri a big deal? And do you think it's going to change Japan?
I think it's a big deal because it sells in the millions. The expansion pack, Monster Hunter Portable Second G on PSP sold 2.5 million copies. I'm sure it sold much more than that by now. That franchise moving over to the Wii, which already has a huge installed base in Japan, that's a very, very, very significant move. It's not like the Tri is doing anything that hasn't been done before. It looks good, it looks better, it does look better. The environments are rich, they've got all the underwater stuff now. Personally, how I feel about Tri is that it's almost taken a step back on one level because you're going back to that let's emulate a sword thing. Half the weapons in Monster Hunter are slow and heavy as hell.
I was using a hammer and basically I would flick the wrist, I watch my dude just kind of gear up, finally swing, totally whiff, I'm like...
And then 30 seconds later you take your second swing, right? Or if you're a spaz like me, you're like, come on! You know, so you're just waving that thing. I don't know if they have like an alternate control setup where you can just like go to classic controller and push buttons. But I guess we'll find that out.
Capcom also had one of the other best looking Wii games there, which was Tatsunoko versus Capcom.
Dude.
Which we might never see, at least in that form here in America, just because of licensing stuff. You got to play it, right?
Yeah. One of the Capcom dudes was saying, like, don't give up hope. That's not to say that it's definitely coming here in that form. I think they are looking into it. I think they're trying to figure out if it's logistically possible. So, there is a chance. They're putting it on Wii. That way it doesn't, eat Street Fighter 4's dessert, because that's coming to Xbox 360 and PS3. So that way all systems get their fighter, and then later on the Xbox 360 and PS3 will definitely get their own versions of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. But what I can say right now is that Tatsunoko vs. Capcom is so fun. For me, who grew up like watching half that shit like Gatchaman and Kashan, it's awesome and it plays awesome. The moves are so easy to pull off. It's so fast. Yeah, it's like a little jaggy when you look at it on HD TV because it's on Wii, but it looks very, very, very close to the arcade version. I don't know if Tatsunoko vs. Capcom was made by Aiding for the arcades, but it's being made by Aiding for the Wii, and those guys know what they're doing, in terms of fighting games. So I'm definitely going to be importing that one.
I think Sega actually had a really good booth because Yakuza 3 looked amazing. And Let's Tap, Yuji Naka's game. As much as it's easy to hate on it, I think it's going to do really well in Japan.
I mean, Matt, you got a
So
chance
you
to
play
play
it?
that, right?
I play it. You tap and you run along, and then you hit it and you jump, and that's a game.
What are you doing? Are you smacking that ass?
ゲーム中には5つのモードで10種類以上の楽しいゲームを収録。走る、歩く、
It's stupid, but it's no less stupid than the other games that sell millions of copies, like We Play or Carnival games. And it is, there's something fun and gimmicky to it. You're hitting the box. I don't know. I think people are gonna buy it.
I think it's gonna be really simple, like it's just gonna be a simple thing. But I mean, they were showing up, like hinting at a bunch of other mini games, and there's like a visualizer you can mess with different scenes and play like music game stuff. There's a lot in there, so it's gonna be interesting.
Savages sent dogs to do their work. Keep fighting! We are capturing the flag!
When they were talking about multiplayer, the first thing we brought up is like, we're in World War II, so what are you guys going to be doing in replace of like the artillery strike, the UAVs, and the helicopter? They wouldn't tell us at the time. But airstrike. Did I say artillery? You did. I went to the back and forth. But we were really concerned what they were going to do. Like,
And you gotta make, they nailed it out of the park.
I think it's such a clever
With the
idea.
dogs.
I think it's a very clever
I
idea.
don't know.
It's a clever idea, but as frustrating as it was to be fighting against when someone calls in an AI helicopter in Call of Duty 4, like, to me, I think it's way more frustrating with the dogs, because with the helicopter, you could always see it in the air. You always knew based on auditory clues like where it was. And on some of the levels, especially the nighttime one by the beach, it's really difficult to see where the dogs are.
The thing is, like, you get hit, you just pull back and you shoot them. And honestly, I become such a good dog killer. Every time they pull it out, I kill like 4 or 5. I am so proud because
This
they're
isn't
not
like
innocent
you
here.
stumble across a petting zoo. I mean, these are like rabbit crazy, and it's a short attack. It's not like this constant element in the game. And it's
Well, it is a constant element in the game, because just like Call of Duty 4, you have some guys that they use each one of these perks to build on their kill streak so that they can then start another one off, and then it leads into another one yet again.
And that, and then the artillery strikes, which is like the 5 kills you get that, you can launch that. The whole like screen shakes, and like you can get paralyzed a little bit, and it's actually like it's kind of creepy at first. You know, I'm like, God, I gotta move. I'm getting all freaking out. Like, where's the next one coming?
And what I like
they
too
do a
is
good
when
job of setting like the whole war.
When they call an artillery strike, you can see in the corner of the map where it's coming from, where it's placed, and you can look over there when, as you know, the sirens start to sound, and then you can actually see them in the horizon. These streams of smoke going up in the air and slowly arching into your area, and that's where I mean I love that tension of kind of seeing with the airstrikes. You know, the planes fly over really fast and they drop the bombs. It's a very quick experience, and this kind of builds a little more tension.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it seems like it's much more devastating because it's over a wider area, and it does a lot more damage. And I'm wondering, like, you guys sound like you like it. You think that's a good decision? What I feel is like one of the best criticisms of Call of Duty 4 is that the upgrade system, whether it's airstrike or calling it helicopters, tended to be overpowered, especially in specific levels. And I feel like this is even more overpowered.
But when I was playing Call of Duty 4, one of the things that stopped me from playing it is that like I don't have the time that I used to have to get really good at every single FPS that comes out there on console and PC. And the losing team loses. Like they don't ever become the winning team. And it's like, but you said
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think it forces you to play a lot smarter. You know, you can't just run and gun when you have things like artillery strikes and stuff coming your way. You just gotta stand under cover and just avoid that stuff. So it actually forces you to become, I would say, a skilled player.
A team player, really.
Yeah.
More so than ever now. You're so effective in a team. Like, I mean, the playing or having another guy help, because your weapons are much more underpowered. So, you know, staying with your group becomes that much more.
You can go through a clip, not kill a guy, and then you're wide open.
And this one, yeah, the weapons are so different, and it forced me to play a little differently. Like, I remember the first question I asked when we jumped into multiplayer last night was, like, what gun is equivalent to my M16A4? And there wasn't one. This is a Thompson, and I felt like I always had to reload after every shot I took.
These weapons just aren't as fun to use as the modern weapons in Call of Duty 4. For me personally, like, and what I mean by that is that Call of Duty 4, your first weapon you get your M16. You can be really successful all the way through that game, only using that gun, never switching to another gun. And I don't feel like that's the case with this game.
I'm kind of on the fence because yes, I do feel they're a lot less underpowered, and there's a larger learning curve, and they're harder to use. But at the same time, you know, if anything with Call of Duty, you know, I was level 24, 25 before I was really getting the hang of it and getting a strategy. So I mean, in the short time we've had to play a beta of this game, you know, a lot of people, I've already started to change my tactics because of the weapon. I think a lot of people will do the same, and the game could eventually almost balance itself out as people kind of get accustomed to this new way of playing it, because we're used to playing it like we play Call of Duty 4, and that necessarily doesn't always work here.
I mean, no offense, but I could disagree with you more. Like, shooting games do not balance themselves, and I feel like these semi-automatic rifles specifically are way underpowered to what they should be compared to like an M16. I feel like you have to put almost an entire clip into people to take them down, and that shouldn't be the case with these rifles. It's consistent from Call of Duty 4 in that due to network latency issues, there would be situations where you'd be shooting someone, and then when you saw the kill cam, you never even turned around and shot at them.
So what do you guys think of the levels? They had 3 maps available, and I really like the castle one. It's open one in daytime hours.
Yeah.
The Japanese one.
Yeah,
a couple sniper points, a couple hallways. It just felt good. You can go up and down the hill. I really liked kind of the hiding points you could do.
Yeah, it has the varied terrain, which is the thing that I like best about that map.
Yeah.
But I think that, at least for my money, like when I look at the levels that are just in this beta, they're better looking than any of the maps that I saw in Call of Duty 4. They're freaking gorgeous.
Yeah, and I want the one with all the huts at nighttime. I want to see that like in daylight too, because I'm sure it looks great, and also like I get lost a lot too. You know, it's like I know we all are having the problem. Like, damn it, I can't see what's happening here.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool to have like a mix of the water there, and then like under the huts and in the huts and shooting through cover.
And based on what you've played so far, which is a limited beta, and we haven't been playing it nearly as extensively, would you want to play this over Call of Duty 4, like personally? Because for me, I'd rather play Call of Duty 4. The weapons are just, it seems easier to pick up and play and have fun with, and that was always one of the greatest strengths of Call of Duty 4 specifically, is that more so than any other shooter, you can not play it for like weeks or even a month and then pick it up and instantly be right back in it and be almost as effective as you were before.
From somebody who like just plays these games more casually than I used to me they're interchangeable. I mean,
I'm looking forward to it because it is new and fresh, and jumping into these new levels, I get really excited about it, learning some new levels and new techniques. And I could see it for that reason alone making me play it through like the end of the year. But then whether it has a long term, that's where I don't know. I mean, I'll be playing this one for a bit, and then if all of you move back to COD4, yeah, I'd go back to that too. Right. But I'm digging this.
It's a breath of fresh air, you know. It's something new, and although I still enjoy playing Call of Duty 4, just using new weapons and like learning the new perks and stuff, like creating your classes is still a lot of fun. And a lot of them are still similar, but with different names. Like I learned that UAV jammer in Call of Duty World at War is camouflage, and they still have martyrdoms.
And I'm really sad that that's still in the game. I wish that would go away.
What would you have rather had if Activision didn't have to dictate that there had to be a Call of Duty game put out every year? Would you have preferred them release a ton of new maps, new weapons, new perks for Call of Duty 4?
I mean, I haven't played the story yet, so, you know, I can't really, I don't want to say. I mean, it'd be interesting to play it and then decide later, but because, you know, they're using the Call of Duty 4 engine, I'm gonna play it, of course, but I don't know if I'll love it, so we'll see.
I feel like I'm going to play definitely more of it because I do want to see the rest of the maps. I think the 3 that they've shown are strong.
What do you guys think of the tanks? Kind of slow and like I wish it reloaded faster.
I was really frustrated with one of the things you can have. You can have a bazooka, and I feel like the bazooka was way underpowered until someone explained to me, like you can take out a tank with 2 shots with a bazooka, but you have to hit the same section of armor. The first shot weakens it, the second shot will blow it up. I think it's an interesting experiment, and I'm glad they at least tried it. I did get my best killing streak with Tina on the turret and me running around as a tank. She had like about 5 kill streak, and I got like a 7 kill streak. And as much as I hate, well, they just kept spawning and I just kept killing them. But as much as I hate the dogs when they're coming at me, I gotta be honest, when I finally get a chance to call them, it was fun. I was yelling at my canine friends, sending them out to attack the dirty German hordes.
It's a great offensive attack is what I found to do is when you let loose the dogs, run with them.
Yes.
Go wherever they are going.
David, I knew it would happen. The dogs would unite us all.
Rated M for mature.
So you think the city is really good? I didn't get to play it, so
I was pleasantly
curious.
surprised by
Did you play
the
the
game.
city?
You know, Square Enix fighting games can go one way or the other.
Usually the other.
Usually the other. And to me, it feels a lot like Psychic Force. So if you like Psychic Force,
I was just gonna say, is it like Psychic Force?
Like Psychic Force.
See, you just anticipation minus 10'd me.
You never liked Psychic Force? I mean, it's not exactly.
I really like Psychic Force. They just marketed it so people pretended like they did.
It was okay. I mean, Psychic Force was okay. You know, back in 1996, it was definitely okay. But now, I mean, do I just want to float around on an axis around Cloud and, you know?
Yeah, the arenas are really bigger than I expected, so there is a lot of flying around. But yeah, remains to be seen how it turns out.
What was that? What was that Koei fighting game? The one that they did after the original Dynasty Warriors. But that one, they were running around like a football field apart, you know, throwing fireballs at each other. So that's what the city is like.
It's a little bit like that, but you know, it's fan service too. It has all these characters, and there's even like a street.
There's this old Golbez, man.
Destrega.
Nailed
it. Destrega.
It's a bit like Destrega too. So
you just said that the city is like Psychic Force meets Destrega.
There's also some tactical parts in between.
You just unsold 500,000 copies for Square Enix. Do you think your buddy Nomura is gonna appreciate that? You gotta come up with better.
Back to Konami's booth. Yeah. The only good thing to come out of that booth was the announcement of a new Castlevania for.
Well, sort of like you saw in like a trailer.
Castlevania for what?
PS3 and 360. So we'll see. It remains to be seen if it's actually a good announcement.
So are they finally gonna do a high-res 2D kind of one, or are they going back to 3D?
Wasn't it supposed to be like a 3D? Wasn't
Oh,
that?
God.
They
What's
showed
up
one
in the
character
air?
render which was in 3D.
Which was allegedly Alucard. Yeah, it is Alucard, and it is supposedly in 3D. But I question: does Konami have the budget?
Konami does not have the budget unless your name is Hideo
Will
Kojima.
it be like Neo 2D, 3D, like 3D characters on a 2D plane for smooth animation, high resness?
I bet it's all 3D. It was clear from TGS that they're still floundering. Meanwhile, a publisher like Level 5 is just skyrocketing up in importance. Their booth was huge.
It's amazing how far Level 5 has come. They've come from like third-party, developer for hire to having their own monster presence as big as any publisher, you know.
In which they have their own new Steam client thing called Roid, which is like you can play PSP and DS games on your computer, apparently, somehow magically, okay?
And then they got Studio Ghibli to
a game called Ni no Kuni for DS.
Right.
It looks fantastic. It's this 3D RPG by, the same studio that brought you like Princess Mononoke and Totoro.
Right.
The animation looks fantastic.
And that animation studio that wanted nothing to do with video games ever again.
Right. They tried to make a game with Miyamoto, couldn't even happen. They're also the developer of White Knight Chronicle, which was Sony's biggest game at the show besides Little Big Planet. And even though it wasn't playable, it does look really good. We're hoping it comes out Christmas in Japan. We're hoping that it actually is as good as it looks. Because last year it wasn't so hot when it was playable with TGS. Well, White Knight Chronicle, they show the online, and it's pretty ambitious. It's a lot like Monster Hunter, so that could actually get Japanese people to go online since they like Monster Hunter. Blade.
At first glance, it looks great, and then you stare at it for a few minutes, and you're like, oh.
And then you play it, and then you're like, uh-oh.
I asked them, I was like, you know what? Out of all the genres you could have picked to dabble in on the 360, you know, first-person shooters, 360's got it covered. Piñatas, covered. Okay? Ninjas, covered. And I'm not saying that there's not room for more than one ninja game on the console, but it just seems like you're setting yourself up
for a direct comparison in
right.
Gaiden 2. And like when you play this game at first, I think it seems like, oh, you know, this could be the sequel to Ninja Gaiden because you have real-time weapon switching, the graphics look good, but then it doesn't all come together.
There's a lot of quick time events. The character looks like a character swap, like a palette swap from Ninja Gaiden.
It's not just that they're quick time events. They're really bad. It telegraphs right before each one's gonna happen, and then it's like tells you how successful you were.
A in the middle of the screen, and you're like, press this, and you get a ranking like perfect or very good, or you know.
It didn't help that the first 4 things you do in the demo were Dragon Slayer things. You're like, okay, where's the gameplay? And then the combat's really slow. So
I don't know, I expected a little bit more out of this game because it's from the Otogi team, and I love Otogi 1 and 2, and they made Metal Wolf Chaos, you know? So those guys have made some really great action games in the past, but this was like, it was just derivative of a lot of things.
From's new PS3 game, Demon's Souls for Sony, wasn't any better really. It's from the Kingsfield team. If you've played Kingsfield, you know not to expect like in the world.
You know, the thing with From Software is I like a lot of their games. I really love a lot of their games, but then some of their games I really hate. Like, you know, we had the Kingsfield Wars back in the day. You loved it up to like a 7.
I gave Kingsfield 4 a 5.0, famously.
This is what Kingsfield was like.
You'd have to fight an octopus too. That was weird.
Oh, octopus.
And I will say that this game, from what I played, was better than that. But it's still like, you know, it's mundane. You're slowly hacking an enemy. It's from a third-person perspective now. If it was co-op, if there was, you know, if this was a 4-player Monster Hunter game, it'd be all right. But as a single-player RPG. Tecmo announced this PS3 exclusive called Quantum Theory. It's Gears of War, made by Japanese people, but you're in a church, right?
Yeah, that's like my anticipation for that is tempered. So that trailer that you saw, which was a CG trailer, no matter how real it looked because it was running at 60 frames per second, that was actually done by a former Team Ninja member who I talked to him at the show. He said he's been working on that that trailer specifically for the last 2 months. So that's not even like, that's not game engine, that's
proof of concept.
Proof of concept.
There's still time. I would advise changing the main character to look slightly less like Marcus Phoenix, if that's possible.
He looks like Marcus Phoenix, but Japanesed up. That's what I thought it was like
Marcus Phoenix.
Gears of War given. I think if anything, the dev team should take their cues from that trailer though, because if they can make anything that looks like that game, that trailer, then they'll probably have a hit on their hands.
And we keep forgetting about the big announcement that was made at Microsoft's press conference.
Halo 3 coming.
No, 99 Nights 2.
Oh,
yeah, the most anticipated game ever.
And Hugh actually wants to, evolve that series and try and take it somewhere. So the development team is no longer Fanagram, or the development's actually going over to Field Plus, who did Lost Odyssey.
Is Q still overseeing the development?
Yes. And the Q's overseeing the development, and I think the guy in charge of Field Plus was actually working with Mizuguchi when they were doing 90 Nights 1, and so he's actually overseeing the project. He knows like how massive it's supposed to be, but now it's in the hands of a Japanese development team. Take that for what you will.
It just seems to me like an unlikely sequel. The first game didn't review well, wasn't well liked, didn't even sell that well. Like, why try again? Just make a new IP.
Hopefully they've got some, ideas up their sleeve.
Okay, the actual big announcement was Halo 3 Recon.
Halo 3 Con.
From Bungie, coming out next fall.
It's
a huge deal.
Didn't feel like it was that much of an announcement at that point, but yeah, it was definitely
that trailer was the one that was supposed to be at E3 then, right?
Yeah,
theoretically.
I imagine. Either that or the teaser trailer. It's hard to say.
I can't believe that Microsoft actually held that announcement back. Remember all the controversy about Bungie was about to say something that Microsoft was like, no. Why they want to save it for TGS? Why? That seems like the worst place to
Gears
announce.
Wasn't at TGS, so it had basically the whole Microsoft shooter thing to itself.
Probably, if anything, just to kind of take the wind out of whatever Sony announced.
Which didn't turn out to be that much.
Yeah.
No Trico.
So it was a needless cockblock.
I don't think Dead Space is scary.
You
Thoughts?
don't think it's scary at all?
Discuss.
It's scary in the sense that if you find scenes where you're in a dark area and a cat jumps out at you from nowhere, if you jump at those moments in movies, I guess you'd be scared, but it's not like...
There are only a few little jumpy moments though. They didn't really put a lot of effort in. Condemned's jumpy moments were way scarier than Dead Space's.
Yeah, I mean, Dead Space, it is like a next-gen Doom in that instead of having monster closets, there are monster vents, and that you always think, oh, there's some big shutter in the corner. Oh shit, a guy comes out of it. Gee, I couldn't see that one coming.
The game does so much more to scare you than throwing monsters at you. The sound constantly.
I think the sound's great.
It isn't a scary, dogs jumping out scary. That's not what type of game it is. It's a game about tension that lasts a long time. It's about being stuck in a spaceship that's lonely and getting to a point where, maybe the part where the asteroid breaks through the ceiling and then breaks through the floor, maybe that's not the scariest thing ever, but then just being able to see a little glimpse of light out of some little window, or hey, there's the stars for a moment, it reminds you how lonely you are in this really derelict space. I don't know, and I feel like the presentation is totally important and key to that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, doing a derelict space station is definitely a hard thing to do to make that compelling and still look great, but I think they pulled it off really well.
As pretty as it is, it's the exact same scene over and over.
Well, I mean, how different can you make a spaceship look? You know when you're in a crew deck, you know when you're in the engine room, and in that way it's successful. This isn't Mario where it's there's an ice level and a lava level and it all needs to look completely different. It stays consistent, and that's a very hard thing to do in an environment this large.
Oh yeah, I mean the production values are fantastic. It's easily one of the best sounding and looking games I've seen in a really long time.
Yeah.
My main problem is that when it's not being a really good anti-alien zombie shooter, it's being a oh man, we really like these scenes from The Thing, Aliens, BioShock, System Shock. There's just a lot of things that developers like, and they're just kind of cramming into this one game, so it almost feels like it doesn't have enough of its own identity. It feels more like a greatest hits of.
Well, I saw a lot of similarities. I mean, Resident Evil 4 is an obvious inspiration for this game. They took a lot of great elements like the item system, the combat, the camera angle, which I think works great in the type of environment. A lot of BioShock I saw references to this as well. Kind of the setting that you're in is, BioShock and Dead Space both are kind of these situations where communities are living for long periods of time in these kind of extraordinary environments, one at the bottom of the ocean, one out in space, and in both these situations you're arriving just after something has gone very, very wrong. And so in that area I kind of got that same vibe when I was playing both of those as well.
So that's Ishimura. Impressive.
The USG Ishimura, biggest planet cracker in her class. And it looks like they already popped the cork.
Why is it all dark? I don't see any running lights.
Corporal, take us in closer and hail them. And stay clear of that debris field. We're here to fix their ship, not the other way around.
I won't spoil it for reviewers. There are 3 sci-fi cliches that are like performed on the dot.
But if you're gonna make a sci-fi horror game, won't you look at what the past templates are for that?
It's almost less cliche and more like nods to what they respect or something.
Yeah, I don't mind them borrowing elements from another game when they execute it well.
A nice person would view it as an homage. I tend to think it's slightly more in the rip-off category, but whatever you think of it, whether it's an homage or rip-off, it is all extremely well done.
I haven't played another third-person game that's like this that I can say is like, oh, Dead Space is just like this game. You can't say that about anything that's come out recently. You can't. I mean, I haven't played any survival horror games or action horror games that are on this level this generation.
Yeah. Isaac looks really cool.
Oh, he's like, awesome
for an average engineer.
He doesn't look like that at all.
Yeah, he's all hulky. He has his badass looking HUD that apparently only he wears a helmet. Nobody else in the game.
Well, he's the only one that's an engineer.
Explained.
The other guys, Kendra Daniels is a computer specialist. Zach Hammond, the other guy, is the chief security officer of the group you're on.
So how come the Marines you're with don't wear helmets?
They're not engineers either. You got to think of this guy. Look at the stuff you're doing. He's going into huge engineering rooms. He's going into like all these dangerous places. He's the one who's going to have like the protective armor that he's in. It just makes sense in the world that you're exploring.
You put protective armor on the engineer, but not on the military guy.
They're not going where he's going.
Do not ever be in a logistics planning meeting for the military. Then, if you're sending guys into combat,
they didn't know they were going into combat when they were going in. It was a communications blackout. That was it. Your guy was going in to fix stuff. They were just going there just as your recon team.
Booyah!
In the context of the world they built, they work. They're supposed to be there. There's thought that was put into that. I mean, any good art direction tells a story, and that's something this game does. You can gather a lot passively in the game by just looking at the walls, by looking at the debris. A lot of the narrative is told you in a way that's revealed to you as you're playing. It's the way the story is revealed to Isaac is that's how you're taking in all this information.
I like that part a lot. I love how you can like pick up all the audio logs and the video logs and kind of feed it to yourself. If you want it, you can get it.
It has perhaps the best like influence of a talking head I've seen.
I'm trying to isolate it, but it's not going to buy us much time. We have to get that thing off this ship. The chemicals you need are in the chemistry lab.
Isaac gets kind of a cool little movie screen that like pops out a hologram. His inventory, the way he manages it, that's also.
Yeah, I love how it's up there right in the screen. I mean, one of the things the game does really well is you never leave the game once you're in it. I like little subtle things like when he's looking through his items, you see his head moving as if he's actually looking at a holographic screen in front of him. It kind of just helps really keep you in the game.
Yeah, they're claiming that there are no cutscenes.
False.
Bullshit.
I like that you can move around in these cutscenes and you're not held in them. So
there
are a few that you have that are pretty short.
Yeah, I mean, I'm making it into more than it really is. There are very few cutscenes, but there are some where you can't control.
Well, the non-interactive cutscenes, the problem I had with them is one, you don't ever see Isaac reacting to what's happening. He'll stand there in his pose holding the gun, and he'll go into like his stock animation if you're standing too long watching the cutscene. And I would have kind of liked to maybe see him react a little bit to what the characters are telling him.
It's like taking the Gordon Freeman of like non like dialogue interaction, but a little bit too far. Because there's moments where like technically, if he's supposed to be an everyday engineer guy, there's shit that he should walk in. He should not just sit there and be like, okay. I felt like they had a shorter thing. They made it longer by like, okay, let's have you walk down this hallway like 3 times instead of like 1 time. Let's have you like do the exact same set of like circumstances, but like again at a different side of the area. I felt there are parts where it distinctly feels artificially like them.
I like being able to fully explore an environment by going into it, not knowing where the hell I'm going, figuring it out, and then like going back through it that next time makes me feel like I know where I'm going, and like it like gives that sense of familiarity that you don't get when all you're doing is going straight through a linear game. I feel like it's a cohesive spaceship. It doesn't feel gamey. It feels the opposite of that. Like if I was in a real life space station, I probably wouldn't go straight through it and never have to backtrack through another area. That's just not how it would work.
You want to throw out your thing about how you have to use your gravity to pull stuff?
The gravity gun to pull levers, because instead of Isaac pulling it, he has uses weird kinetic gravity gun module to pull the lever for him.
Right.
I mean, that just seemed really weird. That seemed more like oh shit, we got gravity gun. We need to justify its existence besides these other puzzles. So while it makes sense for him to pull heavy shit, but when it comes to a lever, I'm just like, why can't you just not go like that?
Well, explanation aside for what I'd say, you're talking about out of an 11-hour game, you spend a total of 20 seconds pulling down those levers.
I'm just saying, it's just kind of immersion breaking that they pay attention to so many other details, but they let details like that slip.
You didn't break the immersion for me though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing it.
I didn't notice it. Like I thought, oh man, maybe this is a heavy ass lever. It's a big one. It's
first thing I thought was oh wow, game element that needs to be justified. Okay.
but it's like 4 seconds long.
And you use it in that area where you're pulling down those levers, you use it to carry like a giant ship across the area right after that. Like you have to pull the tram back right there. So even though you're pulling a couple switches, they didn't need to justify it like that. They had the giant tram that you pulled. It's right there that you could have used that thing for.
I love Zero G. Why didn't I get to use it very much?
When I think about it, I can think of half a dozen off the top of my head areas that you go through.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad. Some of them are very short. It's just like crossing the room to get to a door when you're first starting doing it. But some of the puzzle areas, like the centrifuge and fixing the transmission and stuff, like I really like. Not only is the zero gravity really well, but the way they lay out the levels, where if you just kind of look around and you see the big holographic display, you can actually see how it's explained to you exactly what to do, and you can use that as a reference, which I thought was really smart.
Yeah, it's really good. I wish I could have used it a little more just to kind of experiment. Like there were certain rooms where you had to use it, but I wish there could have been like some stuff that I could have gone through a room normally, or I could have gone through a room like shooting some enemies like that, and just kind of like mixed it together with some of the other games so much, instead of just having it be like, okay, now it's Zero G time, you're gonna have to play it like this.
What do you guys think of the combat? We haven't really talked about that too much yet either.
I thought it was really good.
I did too.
I thought it made you feel more powerful than I was expecting it would. So like my first time through, I basically spent taking the pistol or the plasma cutter and just upgrading it all the way. And then by the end, you know, I had no trouble taking out.
Which I think there's an achievement or trophy specifically for that. Actually, there's a I'm not sure there's a trophy, but there's an achievement for finishing game with the pistol only. So this.
Well, I didn't do that exclusively.
Yeah, no, but I think it is someone designed that you could.
Which is something I like about it.
I did it like
which is
90%, basically.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, it stays an effective weapon throughout the game. I beat the final boss with just the pistol, and that's not saying like the final boss is easy. That's just saying, I mean, it's a very effective weapon.
I think it's almost easier to take one gun, spend your whole time upgrading it so that you have like the best version of that gun, and then just buy a bunch of ammo for it.
The whole resource and sort of RPG elements of it, I found myself to like really enjoy. I mean, you do have limited ammos, slots in your inventory that get upgraded as you level up your suit, and you know you have to judge, you know, how many med packs you're going to carry, how many stasis packs, the things that refill your bar for your stasis ability, you know, how much ammo you want to carry for each gun, and it becomes this constant kind of tug of war of making sure, you know, you have enough slots to collect things while you're out adventuring, but you need enough stuff to fight any guys coming up, and I got really into that.
I didn't find myself having to think about it that much. Just like every now and then I'd be like, oh, okay, I've maxed out however many things I have to drop like one thing.
Sure.
But for the most part, I didn't have to think about it ahead of
The
time.
game is pretty much like tuned to like always give you ammo for stuff you happen to actually carry.
The resource management for me is less about the ammo and what I'm carrying at any given time, and it's much more about what I'm going to spend my electro node things on. When I first saw the upgrade path, the tree for like my pistol and for my armor and for my stasis, I was like, man, this is pretty intense. And then I realized how many weapons there were, and the fact that my kinesis could also be upgraded. And then, you know, you start coming upon the doors that use them to unlock them.
The first time I played through, I stayed with 2 weapons, but I alternated a couple other ones, and you know, between my rig, my stasis, the kinetic ability, and the weapons, like even when I finished it, I wasn't even close to leveling up with the power nodes, all the weapons. I mean, really, I think the best thing that comes out of this is a new IP for EA. I don't think there's a lot of room for a franchise within Dead Space.
Wait. No. What you just said. That's the best thing that comes out of it, but there's not room for a franchise?
I don't really care about a Dead Space sequel. I feel like it's a complete project all on its own. I don't care if they do another one at all. I am excited, however, for the next game that this team's going to make now.
Right.
Like, they're definitely on my radar, and I think that's going to be great.
I think it's pretty clear that they would want to do a sequel, but I'm with Fresh, and I feel like I'd rather see them just make the next whatever game idea that they have.
I want to see like them making more mature rated, like original IPs at EA. They've just shown that they can do it. It was a really compelling experience. So bring it on. Bring us more.
Rated M for mature.